and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. Well, last night I did a short tribute video, of course, to be played at the celebration of life. And it occurred to me that I had not done a celebration of life episode for Fat Paws. And so tonight, Fat Paws is going to sit over my shoulder. He's going to sit over there and he's going to watch over and make sure that I'm hitting the right buttons and doing all the things that I'm supposed to do and so on and so forth. So, so Pawnee, hopefully this works for you. But anyway, Fat Paw's going to sit right over here. He's going to keep me, every time that you see that I'm in this kind of a screen, he'll be up there. And so hopefully I won't step over too much to block him away. But, for those of you that don't know, Fat Paws, passed away, right before Christmas. He had gotten into an accident, and unfortunately never recovered. He spent a few days in the hospital and just never recovered. So anyway, I'm kind of doing this thinking about Bonnie. And oh, by the way, if anybody hasn't noticed, he and I are twinsies on our shirts for tonight. So every time that I don this shirt, of course, I'm going to keep thinking of him. So hopefully, yeah, he passed November 25th is when he passed, I guess. That's my unofficial producer is telling me. But anyway. So there we go. Yeah, so that's who this gentleman is right here. This is Fat Paws, and he is a heavenly whiskey warrior. He won. So, and I guess now I'm being told the accident did not cause his death, although he was in the accident, but it didn't cause his death. But anyway, I'm sorry if I mislabeled. We got to be honest and truthful on this show. So anyway, that's who this is, Fat Paws. So tonight he will hang out with me in the studio as I do the show. All right, folks, let's get things kicked off, which, of course, because Fat Paws is hanging out, he is going to be our Pledge of Allegiance for us, reader of our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Fat Paws as he recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank Fat Paws for his being a whiskey warrior and coming and listening to the show and everything else. You hear that he was very stressful. One nation, under God, which is perfect. He's stressing it. My understanding is he was a fantastic patriot. Well, of course, take a look. He's wearing the shirt and he's coming to this show and doing the Pledge of Allegiance and everything else. He was my understanding is he was a fine patriot, fine husband, fine father. And so there we go. Okay, that, by the way, my number is no longer 20. It is now 21. So I have 21 pledges now. Tomorrow will be the debut of the newest. I'm going to hold off on saying who it is, but I got to tell you, it's after listening to it, I'm fairly certain it's going to be a fan favorite very, very quickly. So, yeah, just be ready for that. That will debut tomorrow night is the newest. But we are 21. I need 22 now because I like even numbers. So if you will, please, if you haven't already, please take a few minutes, record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style, then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to me. You attach it to an email and send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I've got 21. I need 22. And Fat Paws and I thank you for that. Also, too, if you do it on your phone, you can hit the share option, S-H-A-R-E, the share option. And you'll be able to do the exact same thing. You'll be able to send it off to me. Send it to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right. So, let's talk about tonight's headline sponsor, which is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials, and you should take their courses or maybe even consider being an instructor for them. You really should. But all of their courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment through their other course material and information. And again, you should really consider becoming an instructor for them and or taking one of their classes. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or you just want to purchase, sorry there, Fat Paws, but I got to cover your face for a second. If you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Take a look at this wonderful book. It has got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. You get stitched instead of glue. Stitching goes all the way through the binding and the pages contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if you have a problem with this, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It is Fat Paws tested, Fat Paws approved, Buddy tested, Buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for and achieve your civics badge in scouting, as well as your civics exam, possibly even your naturalization test. All of it is right here in this little power packed book. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online and get yours today. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings, including their classes. Their classes, yes, all of that. So, yeah, go to constitution.americanperspective.online, check out the rest of their offerings, and I thank them for being a sponsor of the show. All right. So, Oh, as if nobody really wasn't expecting this to happen. Holy crap. Not that I really care. Because, I mean, let's be honest. There's really nothing going to happen out of all of this. I mean, everything within the Epstein files, means nothing. We pretty much already know what was happening, what was going on, and so on and so forth. I don't know why anybody's really surprised that the Clintons didn't bother to show up today for their congressional Epstein probe. Yeah. Yep. So, anyway, Clintons refused to testify in the House Oversight Committee's probe into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Committee Chairman James Comer said that he is going to pursue contempt charges. What does that mean? Who the hell knows? I mean, pretty much, they just didn't show up. That's it. And they're not going to get anything because of it. I mean, seriously, do you really think that the Clintons are going to serve any time in jail? No. Anyway, they said in a letter posted on X, and by that I mean Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, said that they do not plan to appear for their scheduled depositions this week. They wrote in a 8-page letter, every person has to decide when they have seen or had enough and are ready to fight for this country, its principles, and its people, no matter the consequences. For us, now is that time. Yeah, whatever. Clinton's lawyers also sent Comer a letter confirming they are challenging the legality of the subpoenas. They said the subpoenas issued to the president and Secretary Clinton are invalid and legally unenforceable. Mindful of these defects, we trust you will engage in good faith to de-escalate this dispute. Comer said on Tuesday morning that we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee to hold Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress. Yeah. And then once again, it's going to do nothing. Yeah. Should be really surprised about that. Yeah, I know, Nana. I know that Bannon served 4 months for contempt of Congress, but seriously, Bannon is nowhere near the level of, pedestal worshipness that Bill Clinton is. So keep in mind, we may have control of the House. We may have control of the Senate, but that doesn't mean that we have enough votes to be able to do anything with it, as referenced or as we found out earlier this session when 4 or 5 Republicans sided with the Democrats in the Senate to block Trump or to keep Trump from doing anything further in Venezuela. I mean, I highly doubt that there's, all of the Republicans, I highly doubt that they have the stomach to stand up and say, hey, you know what, this is wrong. You guys need to show up. Yeah, I doubt that's going to happen. So, anyway. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the mainstream media. Well, there's one mainstream media outlet that is out there that is actually kind of, sort of, not really, I mean, buried deep in the article saying that obstructing ICE with a car actually crosses a legal line. Apparently the Washington Post published a story titled, "They Say They're Monitoring ICE Arrests. Feds Say They're Breaking the Law." Now, the story itself is about all of the anti-ICE protesters going around the country who have taken to following, filming, blowing whistles whenever ICE agents are nearby. Now, keep in mind, the general thrust of this article is, legally speaking, protesters can do those things as long as they don't physically interfere with any of the ICE operations. And that is true. The problem is that the Washington Post won't say out loud specifically what is true and factual. they bounce around and they tiptoe around the fact that Renee Good actually broke the law before she decided to turn her car into a 2-ton weapon. Anyway, so the Post is like kind of dancing around, and they're saying, federal court rulings say that citizens can observe and record police activity in public areas as part of their First Amendment rights, and many of the observers are doing nothing more than that. And then they go on to say, but as officers and agents employ aggressive tactics, some activists have blown whistles to warn community members of approaching law enforcement, tried to follow immigration enforcement vehicles, or used their own cars to block the roadways, entering murkier legal territory. And then, of course, they say some legal experts said such behavior could, in theory, justify obstruction of justice charges, but they added that any such prosecution would be unusual. Well, except there's only one problem. 18. Title 18, United States Code 111. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, they kind of water down and a little bit further down, they sort of talk about the Renee Good incident. And as they are talking, they don't name her specifically. They don't talk about the specific incident, but they point out something like this. Could a prosecutor make a credible case that a person is interfering if they're blocking an agent's car or slowing them down? Well, yes, but... yeah. Anyway, these people, they're just like, they're trying to, like, I don't know, dig themselves a hole. I have no idea, but yeah. They, a little bit further down, of course, after they talk to a couple of lawyers, they quote a couple of lawyers and stuff. And, they finally get to a guy by the name of David Loy, who's the legal director of the nonprofit First Amendment Coalition. And he said that members of the public have the right to blow whistles or follow ICE vehicles at a sufficient distance and alert members of their community, but protesters cannot physically stop an officer from doing their job. He said, quote, "It doesn't create a right to commit traffic violations or physically attempt to block a law enforcement vehicle," he said, "but there is a right to follow and document what they're doing." I mean, basically, it just boils down to this. Protesters are not supposed to obstruct or interfere with law enforcement, stuff. So there you go. Yeah. And, of course, they did question one of the people who is one of those Minnesota groups organizing the protests. Apparently, they talked to a person by the name of Yeng Her, Y-E-N-G-H-E-R. Yes, that is her actual last name. And she goes, they are trained just to be there to observe, take notes, and record, not to obstruct. Well, that obviously wasn't what Renee Good was doing. She was obstructing. And that's the end of the story right there. All right. And, of course, that was right before she decided to turn her 2-ton vehicle into a deadly weapon. Or I should say an assault weapon. So I have and actually I'm not the only one, but many people are now, and David Strom in Hot Air said this, and is, I'm right there with him. And realistically, people sit here and they talk about this incident, however horrific it is. They talk about this incident and they sit there and they talk about, well, hey, all the thing, if ICE wasn't there, I've got a real simple answer for that, and I think David Strom tends to agree with me because, you know, Mayor Frey, or Fry, whatever you pronounce his freaking name, Frey, he is saying, well, all I want to do is keep Minnesotans safe, and we don't want ICE enforcement operations taking place in the streets of our cities. Okay, well, great. You want to keep Minnesotans safe, and you want ICE out of your city, right? You know, the Governor Walz, he's in the same boat. He's like, yeah, we don't want you guys there. Okay, well, that's fine. And if that really honestly is your, intent, then I have a question. Why do you ignore federal law? Why do you ignore the fact that you are a sworn officer as a mayor who isn't in the executive part of the city, that you have decided to give up enforcing federal immigration law? And you've refused to hand over criminals who you've rounded up and have put into your jails. You refuse to cooperate with ICE. You refuse to cooperate with Customs and Border Patrol. You refuse to hand over any of those records to ensure that these people, you know, are here legally. You refuse to assist in any simple way. And then, to top it all off, you take those people, who the vast majority so far have criminal records, not only here, but also elsewhere in the world, wherever they came from. They're pretty bad people, many of them. And you refuse, when you've got them captured in your jail, you just go and release them. You refuse to help things out. Now, I'm going to just point this out. Oh, and you also refuse to back up ICE when they actually have operations. But just backing this all the way up to when did this become a problem? Seriously, folks, all that would have had to happen. You know, Renee Good might have been alive. She may not have blocked ICE. If ICE wasn't there, she may not have been in the realm. But honestly, if the police force of Minneapolis and the state police of Minnesota had done their duty, had been given the authority to do their duty, ICE wouldn't be there. Or at least not in the numbers that ICE is there. Because honestly, if they would just do their job, do their duty, enforce the law correctly. Now, I'm not even talking about like Joe Biden. If Joe Biden had enforced the law and not let in, 10, 20, 30, whatever million illegal aliens into this country and just released them into the wild, per se. But seriously, if all you wanted to do was keep ICE out of your city, it's really pretty simple. Start to enforce the law. Start to help ICE. Start to do what you are sworn to do. And that would take care of it. That would seriously take care of this entire process. And you wouldn't have ICE necessarily, or at least a smaller contingent of ICE. Because now what you've got is another 1,000 ICE officers that was just ordered up within the last, 48 hours? On top of what was already there? And the potential of having the Insurrection Act invoked for your city, possibly because you're refusing to enforce federal law? That's a qualifier for the Insurrection Act. I'm telling you, you people don't seem to get it. They all it has to do all that has to do is the president just has to feel that he can't, that the local authorities refuse or unwilling or whatever to enforce federal law, and he can invoke the Insurrection Act. Well, the left is going to keep pushing, and they're going to make things, for being the tolerant, peaceful group of and I laugh because that's bullshit. But being the tolerant left, we're so tolerant of everybody. They sure are violent, aren't they? Yeah. They're actually extremely violent. Apparently, there was a guy in Massachusetts, University of Massachusetts, had a radio DJ. Now, most of your universities have, what do you call it? Nonprofit radio stations. Okay. And they're usually run by volunteers. So, this guy, whoever it is, he was a DJ, and, he made a post on Blue Sky. Yeah, that's where all those leftists go because they could no longer control Twitter. And so they went to Blue Sky and so on and so forth. And this guy, he's a volunteer radio show host. He's resigned, by the way, after authorities have confirmed that they are aware of a post that this individual potentially advocated for killing Vice President J.D. Vance. The person behind the account said, it's simple. We killed J.D. Vance. The person identified themselves as the host of a radio show on WUML, which is funded by the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. As those numbers, or the call letters, would indicate. Anyway, the comment was made in response to another Blue Sky user who claimed that J.D. Vance thinks Britain and France are Americans' likely enemies. So he responded back and said, it's simple, we killed J.D. Vance. WUML's website says that it has given a voice to both the student body at UMass Lowell and the greater Lowell community for more than 6 decades. When the school learned of the post, it contacted authorities, according to a statement provided to Fox News Digital. Said UMass Lowell police promptly coordinated with FBI, Secret Service, and Haverhill police the same day to ensure appropriate response, the school said. Contact was made with the individual in question, and the necessary assessments were conducted in collaboration with federal partners. Authorities confirmed that there is no immediate threat. But still, think about that for a second. They talk about, oh, well, up in the ante, increasing the temperature, the rhetoric and, all of this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But yet here they are. That's what they're doing. This is what their sycophantic morons, stupid, complete, complete, stupid morons, however you want to put it in. And all they're doing is they're sitting there and they're pushing up the ante. They're pushing more chips into the middle, into the violence part of the middle. Now, continue on, and UMass Lowell, this is a statement, UMass Lowell takes any threat of violence involving our community seriously. Statements such as the post in question are inconsistent with the values of our democracy and our university. The individual in question has resigned from his volunteer role at WUML and removed his post from the Blue Sky account. The school also said that the person behind the violent rhetoric is an alumni. So, yeah. Well, it's not just supposedly famous people that are continuing to add more fuel to the fire. This is a left-wing TikTok user who urged his followers to perform violent acts. Let's let's go ahead and take a listen here.
Hey, so look, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I don't really care about the consequences anymore. I don't care. We need to kill these people. There's just an alternative. I don't care if you say, oh, I've got the crazy eyes, whatever. Yeah, I do feel crazy because we've had 3 people die in 72 hours, and we've had over almost 30 die in the last year to a group of quote-unquote law enforcement that is basically just buffed up mall cops, right? Who are gun-triggering happy Proud Boys. Let's call them what they are. It's the Proud Boys. Why do you think we didn't hear about them? Any of you heard about the Proud Boys all year? Suddenly no more Nazi marches? None of that shit? Right. There we go. They're Nazis. Peyton said it best. They're Nazis. And the only way to stop this shit, let's be honest, is gonna be to get violent. We gotta get violent, people. And I'm tired of denying it, and I'm tired of y'all being pussies about it.
Okay, enough. First of all, the Proud Boys are not Nazis. In fact, the guy who founded the Proud Boys is, I believe, of Puerto Rican descent. So, yeah. They also, just to put this guy on the, truth train, the federal law enforcement, regardless of which division they work for, they all go through very similar training, if not exactly the same training, at least in the beginning. So, yeah. Anyway, this guy, whoever this guy is, he is a complete and utter stupid moron, for sure. For all of this, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. Fat Paws is like giving me the thumbs up back here. Anyway, yeah, he just this guy. Yeah. Anyway, again, these people, all they're doing is they're just kicking up the temperature. That's all they do. They're just kicking up the temperature. And this is going to get worse before it gets better, people. Especially when dealing with these folks. Just think about it. We're 1 year into the second term of Donald Trump. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump is not going to back down. And I don't think any of his administration is going to back down over this. So, yeah. Anyway. I don't know why these people, I mean, this is one of the disadvantages that you have when you have ease of access to stuff like this. So, anyway. All right. Let's move on. Yeah, let me get into this. Let me just take a quick break before I move on to the next. These people, the amount of stupid that I've been running across over the course of the last 10 years is just, in my mind, mind-boggling. Anyway, this isn't stupid. This is actually a smart thing that you can do. You can head on over to rumble.com and make sure that you watch my show on Rumble. I know I transmit on YouTube and Facebook and X, but really the best place to be is on Rumble. And if you're on Rumble, you can also start to notice things like Rumble growing fast and not slowing down. And just imagine what's going to happen when Dan Bongino comes back on February 2nd. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Rumble is building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now they've got Rumble Premium, which is an easy way for you to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. No pre-rolls, no interruptions, just content that you came to see. Plus, Premium members will also unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't done that yet, but believe me, the thought is in my head to go ahead and do so. But anyway, before you got to get Rumble Premium, though, in order to have access to that kind of stuff. Well, right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. All you need to do, this is so simple, all you need to do is go to rumble.com/premium. That's rumble.com/premium. Use the promo code STUDIO, STUDIO, at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium studio code or promo code STUDIO, STUDIO, to get $10 off that annual subscription to Rumble Premium. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. That's the deal. Go to rumble.com/premium, use the promo code STUDIO at checkout to get $10 off your annual subscription to Rumble Premium. Rumble.com/premium, promo code STUDIO. Go do that today. Become a Rumble Premium subscriber and skip all the ads, man. Skip everything. And gain access to those behind the scenes drops and all this wonderful stuff that they have available on all your favorite creators. Do it. Do it today. All right. Sorry for covering up your face there for a minute there, Fat Paws, but you know, we gotta do a little bit of the money here. Anyway, good news, if there is any, out of Minnesota. There's some good news out of Minnesota. I know everybody's kind of like, what the hell is good news out of Minnesota? I mean, seriously. Steven Stiles and I were talking today on the phone, and he was just like, I don't know what the hell happened up there. Somebody must have tainted the water. I agree. The land of 1,000 lakes, and they're all tainted with a leftist something. I don't know. Anyway, the good news out of Minnesota is that a Minnesota state Republican has stated that articles of impeachment against Governor Walz may be released. Well, they're supposed to be released possibly today. So Walz now has been accused of obstructing investigations into the Minnesota Somali fraud. Tried to stuff Minnesota and Somali together. Anyway, a Republican state representative has confirmed to Blaze News, where this is coming from, that articles of impeachment are being drawn up for Governor Walz and will be released soon. So, yeah. The state rep, Ben Davis, who also is a pastor, said that we're going public with them, I believe this week, possibly even tomorrow. Davis said that Republicans have been telling Walz directly to intervene against the fraud and that he refused. There was a comment too where somebody was saying, or basically the representative said, fraud is happening, fraud is going on, you need to put tighter levers on this, and he's done just the opposite. So Walz announced that he would not be seeking a third term in office, but hasn't done anything else. And Davis said that impeachment would need a majority in the state house to go forward, and then approval of 2/3 of the Senate to actually convict him. So that part's not going to happen. Now, Republican Tim Burchett, however you want to pronounce it, of Tennessee, said Governor Walz needs to step down, saying he will stay on to investigate. It's like O.J. Simpson saying he will investigate the murder of his ex-wife. Well, he's not wrong. Anyway, the House Majority Whip Tom Emmer out of Minnesota said in a recent podcast, quote, I'm not going to be Minnesota nice. I'm going to be Minnesota real. Tim Walz should resign, and if he doesn't resign, he's probably going to leave the office in cuffs. Republican Congressman Brad Finstad of Minnesota said, we're not going to be taken for chumps. Think of what our parents and our grandparents sacrificed to give us the life that we have. And what are we giving our kids and grandkids? We're giving them fraud. We're giving them $38 trillion in debt. We're giving them more government, not less government. So there's a good possibility that Tim Walz may get impeached and removed from office. I doubt it. I mean, I'm sure the articles of impeachment will be filed. They'll be public, but I doubt the Minnesota legislature and the Senate will actually do any of that crap. Well, moving into the socialist world, just like any other socialist, they believe that illegal immigrants should vote. And, well, the socialist Seattle mayor, yes, that's Seattle, Washington, right here in my state. Embarrassment. We have some embarrassing people. Between Pramila Jayapal, Patty Murray, you know who I don't hear from is Maria Cantwell. I don't ever hear from Maria Cantwell. Okay. I never hear from her. Now, she's my other senator. She is a leftist, I think. Well, she's definitely a Democrat. But I don't know if she's necessarily on board with the leftism in this country, but she is my other senator. And yeah, I haven't heard anything from her. Patty Murray just sort of eclipses her. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. The socialist Seattle mayor, Kate Wilson, says illegal immigrants deserve to vote. Yeah. Yeah. Really? This is the same conversation that I've had with a lot of people. People do not seem to understand the United States Constitution, especially the right to vote, does not include anyone who is not a United States citizen. Now, we extend certain parts of the Constitution because that's the kind of people that we are to others, especially when they're being caught as a criminal, the right to remain silent and right to due process and all of those kinds of things, because we actually believe in it. But the reality of it is that everything that is in the United States Constitution only was applied to United States citizens, which is part of the reason why it says, "We the people of the United States." They didn't recognize the tribes, the Native Americans. They used to call them Indians, but they didn't recognize those tribes as being part of the United States of America. They didn't recognize the founders and the framers didn't recognize those people because they were not free people. They had, and this all kind of wraps around this whole thing about birthright citizenship and everything else. They recognized that if you did not have an allegiance, a political allegiance to the United States, that you could not be considered a United States citizen, which is part of the reason why we are not going to, I'm hoping that SCOTUS will go along with the historical definition of it. But anyway, I digress. Socialist Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson says illegal immigrants deserve to vote. Yeah, they don't. She was speaking to the crowd when she said, "This is your city. People who were born here in Seattle, people who came here from across the country and from across the world. Whatever the status of your immigration paperwork, this is your city. You deserve to be safe, to live a dignified life, and to have a say in your government." No, they don't, because they're not citizens. Even though I know that cities and states, there are cities and states that are doing what they're doing, I get it. Okay, I get it. But anyway, yeah. All right. Well, we had a couple of cases that were heard at the Supreme Court level today. They were heard at the Supreme Court level. And the United States Supreme Court took a look at these two cases. There are two state laws, one in Idaho, the other in West Virginia. Both of them ban male athletes who do not identify with their sex from competing in school sports teams intended for females. Now, One of them was a male. The one in Idaho was for a male who was going to Boise State University, who wanted to compete on the women's team. So the nation's court listened to back-to-back oral arguments today between these two cases, one Little versus Hickox, Hecox, and the other one was West Virginia versus BPJ. So they listened to the arguments back and forth. And let's just say that most of the individuals who were listening, especially those with a legal mindset, they all kind of say the same thing, that it's not likely that the SCOTUS is going to block the states from banning men in women's sports. Now, I simply am going to take this, I mean, other than the fact that this is an 80-20 issue, meaning that 80% of the country does believe that men do not belong in women's sports. It's actually probably a little bit higher than that. It's like 90-10. But anyway, I digress. From that, I just simply point something out, that when Alexander Hamilton and James Madison were writing in the Federalist Papers, not also John Jay, but they were writing in the Federalist Papers, there was a point made by Madison where he basically said that, hey, the federal government handles things that are, and I'm paraphrasing here, but that are outside of the state's purview and control, and that the states need to handle everything that deal with the American people for the most part. That the federal government handles foreign, if you think about it, from the border outward with very little inside the states other than maybe helping the states kind of work together and put some common things together, such as post roads. But that everything that the states do have to deal with the American people directly. It's highly unlikely that SCOTUS is going to, and I'm saying this from my own experience, it is unlikely that SCOTUS, at least the conservatives that are on the court, and even the ones that are sort of conservative, they generally tend to have a little bit more of an originalist idea with all of this. And so this whole thing is, a question of whether or not women need to be protected. Seriously. I mean, that's really what this is. Do women need to be protected from their own, or, in their own spaces, which is where Title IX actually came from. And so that is essentially the arguments that we're going back and forth. So while we probably won't find out until like May or June, the arguments back and forth, even Politico, I'll go ahead and show you this. Even Politico is saying that SCOTUS seems likely to okay the trans sports bans. So Politico writes here, oops. Oh, you're going to. It's trying to force me to sign up. Anyway, even Politico pointed out that Chief Justice John Roberts indicated that the logic of a case called Bostock versus Clayton County, which was the landmark 2020 civil rights decision protecting LGBTQ plus minus divided by sign ampersand people, may not apply in these cases. And he said the question at hand today will focus on whether transgender athletic bans, which have been instituted largely in Republican red states, are permissible under the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act. So Kavanaugh, of course, who is a longtime girls basketball coach, said that he worried about the harm caused to cisgender girls, which is true. They were concerned about cisgender girls losing out in terms of their places, their college scholarships, so on and so forth with all of this. So anyway, the lawyers, Jim Burling, a senior counsel at the Pacific Legal Foundation, which is a public interest law firm, said that he is predicting the Supreme Court is going to find that men are men and women are women. The court will not find that gender identity is protected under Title IX, enacted in 1972, or the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, because the concept of gender identity was unknown when they took effect. So keep in mind, Title IX was adopted to make sure that girls and women could participate in school sports on an equal basis with boys and men. And no one, in his opinion, believes that transgender identity was part of what was being protected under the law. I would tend to agree. Just like foreignborns and aliens and everything else were not protected under the 14th Amendment when it came to citizenship. So anyway, the point being, he's saying, is that you can't graft modern day concern onto the language of a constitutional provision that's over a century old. He's not the only one. He's not the only one that is kind of following along with this. Because according to Carrie Severino, who is the president of the JCN, which is formerly the Judicial Crisis Network, she predicted that the Supreme Court will clarify that transgender status is not a suspect or quasi-suspect class, as it doesn't fit into the type of classes that have been recognized historically as suspect or quasi-suspect classes. She told the Epoch Times, the court cannot simply invent categories of constitutional protection. In constitutional law, a suspect classification is a class or group of individuals meeting criteria that suggest that the group is likely the subject of discrimination. And that a quasi-suspect classification refers to groups such as those based on gender or legitimacy of birth. When the law involves suspect or quasi-suspect classification, courts apply strict scrutiny, meaning that they will look at whether the law at issue serves a compelling government interest and uses the least restrictive means to achieve that interest. Severino said for the Supreme Court to step in and invent new constitutional rights that would have been absolutely shocking to those people who ratified the 14th Amendment, for them to jump in and cut off the right of citizens to pass laws that they feel are appropriate to protect women in their states, that would be inappropriate. Kristen Wagner, president of the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is a public interest law firm also, said, and that is part of the Idaho team, said that the statutes in Idaho and West Virginia serve the interests of women. She said in a January 8th news conference that women deserve equal opportunity, fairness, and privacy, and states have the right to recognize biological distinctions when those distinctions matter, and they matter greatly on the athletic field. So, yeah. She also continued and said that when state laws protecting women's sports are not allowed to be enforced, women and girls are losing the opportunities to be on the field in terms of fairness, and their safety and privacy are placed in jeopardy. So it seems like everybody is, well, at least all of the legal analysts are saying, based on of the questions that were being asked, by the way, the questions that were being asked and stuff, that the SCOTUS is probably, at least one of them actually pointed out, or one of the people actually pointed out, that they believe the way this is going to go is going to be a 5-4, maybe a 6-3 decision, but it's probably going to be 5-4. That's probably what it's going to happen. So anyway, we'll have to see. All right, in the final closing minutes, I just want to point out, because I think you guys have heard about this, California has been talking about proposing new legislation that was going to be a one-time billionaire wealth tax in the state of California. Except there's a bit of a problem. See, I think it was Margaret Thatcher, and I'm not going to say the exact quote, but I believe she said something to the effect of, the problem with communism is that eventually you run out of other people's money. Well, here's the bit of the problem. California has a huge deficit in their budget, and they're trying to figure out how can they get the deficit covered. Now, they're not looking at it like normal people who would look at their, income and then look at their credit cards and their outgoing expenses and go, hey, my income is going to be fairly static, so I need to cut back expenses. No, that's not what Democrats, and especially Democrat morons, do. So the Democrats have decided, hey, we've got these billionaires sitting in our state, and they're not being taxed enough. And so they came up with this idea of not actually an income tax, but a true wealth tax, which is only going to apply to about 200 people, 200 in a state that has millions in it. It's only going to apply to 200, so who cares? So here is what the proposal is. The state would tally up everything those people own, homes, cars, stock, companies, whatever, and take a full 5% of whatever that total is. Now, if they don't have the amount in cash, the law would then force those people to sell whatever property they have to in order to cover the tax. This is the proposal. This is what the proposed thing is. Now, what's even worse is they were going to get a gotcha, because most people would be like, oh yeah, well, as soon as the law takes effect, prior to when the law takes effect, that people would leave. Well, here's the gotcha. It's not even ratified yet. I mean, this hasn't even been put before the voters or anything else, but these smart, intelligent thieves went ahead and put in a clause in the wording of the bill that basically backdates it to where the effectiveness goes to none other than January 1st, 2026. Now, here's the problem. They had, in terms of who was going to qualify, a pot that they estimated to be about $2 trillion. $2 trillion. Now, what's happened is, because again, this bill isn't even in effect yet. It hasn't even been voted on. It hasn't even been it hasn't been even signed into law. But because of the fact that these billionaires have all this money and they're like, yeah, you know what? We're not hanging out for this. The top billionaires have already left the state, dropping that $2 trillion pot that was estimated when the bill was put forth down to $1 trillion. So they have 50% less now estimated income off of this bill than what they would have had they just kept their mouth shut, or better yet, not done it at all and just come up with some other tax. Well, now that those people are gone, okay, now that those people are gone, they're going to have to figure out or finagle, how do we get more people? So originally they were going to do about 200 people. Now they're going to have to finagle and figure out, where in the hell are we going with this? So, yeah. These people are so damn dumb. See, and here's the thing is that it may go on to the ballot in November if it gets enough signatures. But as of right now, if it passes in November, it's a little too late to leave if you haven't left yet, if it passes, because that was, again, January 2026. But they already lost 50% of it right now. So, 50% of the wealth. So, these people. Yeah. So anyway, I swear, California, any of these socialists, they're just so damn dumb. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you get signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel, hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up, thumbs downs, or, of course, in the case of 3 Chevy, the thumbs sideways across all my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night for Whiskey Wednesday. I do not have a pet of the week. Well, wait a minute. I take that back. I think I have one more emergency pet of the week. I got to find it, though, but there's one more emergency. If you have a pet, please send it in so that I don't have to use my final emergency stash. That would be great. Fat Paws and I say goodnight to everybody. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. And like I said, Fat Paws and I say goodnight, everybody.